All right, there are a lot of mixed opinions on if and when and whether or not it'll even happen. The SEC will add teams. I know that people have very differing opinions here on what will happen. I am of the belief that the SEC will eventually add teams. People think that that could be 2 years down the road. People think it could be 10 years down the road. Some people think never. But if you had your top 6 teams that are talked about within conference realignment, Florida State, Miami, UNC, Virginia, Clemson, and Notre Dame, and you had to pick 2, which 2 of that group are you adding to the SEC and why?
What a great question. Okay, I am going to add Notre Dame. Mainly because I just want to see them join a damn conference. I'm so sick of the like 1 foot in for this sport, but we get to stand on our own over here. So I think Notre Dame expands the SEC footprint, which I think is important. It's important for recruiting. It's important for TV viewership. I think that there could be some really interesting games that come from that across multiple platforms, not just football. I mean, I think it basketball brings a lot to the table. Baseball, I think overall that would be incredibly interesting. And then you're going to hate me, but I'm going to say Virginia, another state that the SEC doesn't have a footprint in. I think that they can compete across multiple sports. And I think that that's important as well. So I'm going to go with those 2. I know that you, as the Florida State fan, are killing me that I didn't say Florida State, but you know, that's not an appealing ad to me.
It really doesn't bother me because you and I won't decide this, so it's all good. I'll let you have it. And but I will ask you this: what are your thoughts just on conference realignment in general? Love, hate, don't care. Just where are you at on all of this? Because it really is kind of what's running.
Yeah.
With the transfer portal, NIL, it's kind of what's running college football right now.
So I don't love it. I don't love the idea of some of these traditional rivalries going away. I think that the entire concept of conferences was geographical. And now we have, insanity, right? We have West Coast teams that are coming over to join East Coast conferences. I don't know. I don't think that it doesn't make any sense. It's not what the initial history of these conferences were. I think that part of what makes college football different and special than, professional sports is things like these conferences and the traditions that are built within them. And I don't love that college football looks different than it did when we were kids. I don't it's not my favorite.
I know the Super League is stupid and not going to happen, but I think eventually you could see the Big Ten and the SEC just merge. I kind of agree with you. I think the regionality, the importance of this conference stuff is dying. Like winning the Big Ten or the SEC has really never meant less. Like now for pride and stuff, it means a lot. But it really doesn't, like its value is minimized now that you are letting 10 other teams. You can win the Big Ten or the SEC and you still get 10 other teams that get in. Now there is, you get a first round bye or whatever. I think most athletic directors would probably prefer the home playoff game as opposed to a first round bye just because of how much money you make from it. But all that aside, I think the importance of conferences and the conference pride that you had, and the SEC has obviously carried that banner, but like the Pac-12 did that too, especially with their academic universities, and the Big Ten is certainly known for waving that flag and that banner. ACC schools aren't really proud to be there, maybe in basketball a little bit, and then the Big 12, kind of the same thing. But I think all of that is going away. Regionality is going away. Conference. I think there could. I mean, I don't even know if the SEC or the Big Ten will be named those things in 15 years, and it may just be one big super conference that is like a mini NFL.
Well, what will speed that up is if having conference championships doesn't help get more teams into the playoffs, right? If you are actually penalized because you played in the toughest conference, but you lost in your conference championship game, they're going to do away with that in a hurry, right? Because they want the entire reason that we have these big, strong conferences right now, that Oklahoma and Texas were added, is because they're hoping that that's going to mean more teams into this playoff, which translates to more money, right? So if that doesn't happen, we are going to see, I think, a hurry on changing things up. But I do think we have to be careful about this. I don't think super conferences. I just, maybe it's the best thing for the bottom dollar. I don't know. I just don't think it's the best thing for the sport. And I do think that college football is so unique. And if we get rid of the things that make it special, eventually it does hurt fanhood, which is what supports all of this to begin with.
Yeah, you're getting so far away, I feel like, and I mean we're still going to tune in and watch every week and probably every single game, right? Like I mean obviously Florida State plays in the week 0 game this year, but we still tune in to watch that dumb Ireland game even when we're not in it, right? And so like we're still going to watch, but it is so much of what we love about college football is being eroded. Now, I ultimately think it's good that the players are getting paid. I don't think NIL is a bad thing. I think it's good that players can transfer with some reason when and where they want to, especially because a coach can go from team to team to team to team. And so, like, I think these are good things. I mean, as a fan of a team in a conference with dying revenue, like, I don't think Florida State can compete for championships at a $50 to $60 million revenue gap than their peers are, LSU and Florida and teams that they're recruiting against it. And so, yeah, I think conference realignment is a thing that is necessary. Like, it's a must, right? Like, Florida State can't stay, Miami can't stay in the ACC and think that they're going to compete on a national year in, year out. But all of those things considered, even though I think each one of those things are fine or good or whatever, it is eroding what we know and love as the sport. And again, we are just moving closer to an NFL junior.
And it is. And like, I mean, I don't like the NFL as much as I like college. Now,
Yeah,
I
at
know there
all.
are fans, and generally you have fans that are either super huge college fans or super huge pro fans. It's hard to find somebody that is a super fan of both because you kind of love one concept or the other. It doesn't mean you don't tune into the other one, but you're usually only a diehard about one league or the other. But I just think that they could have done this differently. I hope that we will see some changes to NIL and the portal in the next couple of years. And essentially, this happened because the NCAA wasn't willing to give an inch on anything, even things that aren't important. And so then eventually, these leagues these conferences kind of figured out, well, we can kind of do it without them. The players figured out they could do it without them. They went a different route. When in reality, all the NCAA had to do was be reasonable with these players, with these schools, and we wouldn't be in this position. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time, but think about the fact that you couldn't serve players bagels with cream cheese during the 2000s because the 2006 era because the carb to protein ratio was not allowed by the NCAA. Like, think about the things that were being micromanaged, and now think about the Wild West that we are in right now. There has to be a middle ground somewhere.
Yeah, and I think even the schools get to skate by with a little bit, like everybody, we blame the NCAA a lot. I don't think the schools wanted to give up any of their revenue either. And they, I think at times, like the universities are certainly at fault too.
Yeah.
Because they certainly, if the universities would have ever gone to the NCAA and said like, hey, we're willing to part with some of our TV revenue, the SEC is making $80 million a year in the next couple of years per team. If they would have gone to the NCAA and said like, hey, we will part with some of our revenue to kind of get this under control, the NCAA would have said, okay, that's your money. Great. Sounds good. The schools didn't want to do it either. So like they skate by on some stuff, but like none of these these public universities wanted to pay anybody either, or the private ones. But Texas was admitted entry into the SEC and kind of overrode A&M's veto. So
Yeah.
it doesn't seem like unanimous support is needed with the SEC. Who do you think would vote against? I'll ask you two, the big two kind of in the regional area. Who all do you think would vote against Florida State, and who all do you think would vote against Clemson?
It's interesting.
Separately.
I know the easiest answer is to say that Florida would vote against Florida State and that South Carolina would vote against Clemson and that potentially they would kind of partner up because they both don't want their rival there. I don't know if I think that's true or not, though, because the reality is those schools are going to play regardless, right? So does it scare Florida or scare South Carolina to have a team that they see on their schedule every single year, no matter what, join their conference? I don't know that it does, honestly. Now, there may just be some pure hatred there that allows them to want to, keep them out or view as the little brother or something like that. But I don't know that it would necessarily be the programs that you would think it was. I think that there's a good chance that it's more programs that feel threatened by the caliber of play that Florida State would bring in, or Clemson would bring in. So maybe you look at the Mississippi States, the Vanderbilts, the Kentuckys, the teams that would potentially get one rung lower on the totem pole if Florida State and Clemson do join the SEC.
Yeah, I also wonder with a lot of those votes, if the commissioner doesn't, if they don't have their conversations and, say it is Florida, say it is South Carolina, say it is Kentucky, well, whoever, right? That says like, yeah, we really don't want to do this. And the commissioner says, okay, thank you for letting me know. Everybody vote this way. And then they all vote like you voiced your opinion.
Yeah.
We're going to do this, or we're going to, I don't know. I think in some of those back chamber rooms, like you never really know like how or what, or what's really going down. But that is an interesting take. Yeah, I think the argument for like South Carolina or Florida doing it, or Georgia, who I think, not that they're worried about any like competitive disadvantage, but you recruit against Florida State quite often. LSU recruits against Florida State a lot, just geographically being closer than I think really most other SEC schools. Is the like, well, let's keep them down, right? Like if there's a 50 million, but yeah, I think the thought would be like, well, if they don't go to the SEC, they're going to the Big Ten, and the money would be the same anyway. So yeah, I've never thought about that. I think that's a good take. Like, maybe it is one of those lower teams. It's like, all right, we're getting beat up every week anyway. We need to stop. Mississippi State doesn't want FSU and Clemson in there because that's just all right. Add a couple more losses to the rotation. So, Allie, where can people find you? Where can they follow your work? Where can they check you out at?
On Twitter, it's Allie_Peek. Allie is ALI. Peek is PEEK. And on YouTube, you can check out A Peek Inside Gators Football.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much for joining. If you guys have missed any of our other conference realignment videos, you can click on the screen right now to check them out.